I would literally go door to door and put flyers under people's houses and ask that they phone me.
In our premiere episode, Nat Jabangwe tells it all. She shares about her leadership journey from an unassuming engineering student to a top professional, CEO of EcoCash Zimbabwe, and advisor on the UN Secretary General's first ever global task force on digital finance. Hi everybody, welcome to this our premiere episode of the Africa X, which is Nat and Jackie's fireside chats. And I'm Jackie Tsuma, and I'm joined by the very lovely Natalie Jabangwe.
Thank you, Jackie.
Really good to be. We've been talking about this for the longest time, so I'm so glad that we can get to get to interact and chat with you guys, and meet together and talk about fun things. So, but first, why Africa X? I know you're wondering. I'm gonna let Natalie tell us a bit about that.
Africa X, because we are really about, personally, what we believe in, leapfrogging in everything that we do. And when you look at the trends today, everything that is disruptive, everything that is unprecedented, that is a new wave, is going by the code name X. So you look at the Tesla X, you look at the Space X, you look at topical programs or conferences that are coming on globally. For example, the Davos X, everything is totally X. And we wanted to create a narrative showcase or episodes for Africa that are really X, that are undefined, unprecedented, and surprisers about this continent. And therefore, we decided to call Natalie and Jackie's Fireside Chats, dubbed Africa X.
Absolutely, and a great way to put that, Natalie. Really, we're talking about leapfrogging. We're talking about how in Africa, we don't have to start from 0 or from 1. Hey, let's just get right to the X already, yeah? When it comes to everyone knows and loves, I guess, the iPhone X right now. So thanks for laying that out. So today we have a great chat lined up for you guys. We're just gonna, take it easy, relax. And we want to just also say that if you're watching this, be sure to like it, to comment, put your comments below, share it with your friends, bring them into the conversation. So what we wanted to just mention, just as Natalie said, Africa X. Why Africa? We're really so passionate about changing the African narrative and about how everyone's story is so super important. Everyone has a story and it needs to be told. People need to hear your story, and that's why we want to talk about this. Well, we actually read some recently we had some we were having a really good conversation recently about some of the stories out there, and I think I'd love to hear some of the thoughts you shared.
Yes, I have just recently read Michelle Obama's Becoming.
Yes.
And the premise of that book is telling your story. Everybody comes from somewhere. Everybody belongs somewhere, and everybody has a story. And far too often, we're embarrassed about our stories, or we don't tell them enough. Particularly on the African continent, are so many stories that could surprise the world that are undertold. And in Michelle Obama's Becoming, one of the things that she really encourages is put your story out there, tell it and share it with other people, because you could provide an opportunity to collaborate, to exchange ideas, or just for other people to actually pick up a nugget and learn something. So sharing stories allows us to exchange on ideas that may not converge necessarily when they're not told.
Yeah, so Michelle Obama's book is quite amazing. And really, by the way, something that she did say, and which we'd love to talk about right now, is how your story matters. And great segue, because today we want to talk about Natalie's story, right? I mean, so you guys definitely will know Natalie, and if you don't, now you do, right? Natalie, she's amazing. She's the CEO of EcoCash, right, in Zimbabwe here. She's the youngest CEO, really, of a corporate fintech in Africa. First of all, let's just say that, which is an awesome achievement.
Thank you.
In the presence of greatness, please recognize. And then she's also one of the top 100 under 40 global leaders for the World Economic Forum. So this is quite, it's quite an achievement, Natalie, really. And of course, we already now told people your age. Top under 40.
Thank you for that disclosure.
I know, hey, but that's a lot to achieve before turning 40. So, and recently, most recently, she's actually the advisor to the UN Secretary General for just for actually the first ever global digital task force, you guys. That's yeah. So there's a lot that Natalie gets up to in her own time, right?
Thank you for your kind words.
So we want to find out from you, Natalie. Tell me, how did your journey start? Like guys are like really interested to know, how did your journey start? How did you get here? What would you say like set you off on this journey?
I don't think there was anything peculiar about it. For the most part, Jackie, it was very accidental. And I say that because when I finished high school, I was an arts major during high school, and I really wanted to study law. I was all set to be geared and to go away and do that. But my mother had been working in the UK for a few years, and that was just back then in 2001, and I think the internet had just been introduced in about 1995 or thereabout. So it was nearly about 6 years old, and my mother had, come across the things that were happening in the computing world, and she had just learned herself how to use a computer. And she felt that it was really important, and for some weird reason, she had this inclination that the world and its future was going to dynamically converge around technology. So when we were talking about my choices for university, one of the things she said is, you really have got to go and study technology. And I really felt that an opportunity for a lifelong childhood dream had been taken away. And my mother, being the mother that she is, just literally had nobody else negotiating alternatively for this, and said, if we're going to spend any money on it, it has to be technology. And you can do your law degree later. So I studied that almost begrudgingly. But the one thing that I remember super importantly is that even if you emerge somewhere accidentally, preparedness can help you get through something that you otherwise would not have planned for. Just like in life, nobody comes with a silver platter handed to them. You were gifted the family that you eventually belong to, for the most part, the community that you emerge in. What makes the difference is how you're going to prepare yourself through that. And so I went through this life of a technologist, and lo and behold, as I was going through university, I met a really top student when I didn't realize at all I had any engineering capabilities.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even know that you actually were going to university initially for something else, and then you changed into tech.
Yeah.
So that's just a natural, you just have it like a natural penchant for that, isn't it? Like it's just a gifting to be able, you're top of your class in that case. And then what happened from there?
Well, retrospectively, I don't think it was so much a gifting, but I think when we latch on to the things that we are very passionate about, we can find a way of making it work. And so when I think about it, I think my love for going into law was only because I loved facts, I was logical, and I was very creative. And so for me, the opportunity to embody what I was passionate about would probably come if I got a place where I could publicize that. For example, in a court of law where you defend somebody and you use some creativity, some logical facts, and your passion to actually stand out. But I think my ability to have been able to channel those passions in engineering had me standing out. So a really good lesson early on is that be what you are passionate about, and you can channel your passion into anything that is presented before you, and you're highly likely going to make some magic.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's actually pretty much hard work, isn't it?
For the most part, because Jackie, one of the things I had to resign onto early on was that I'm going to work so hard at this computer science engineering degree, do so well at it so that I can go to law school. So I got through it by working hard and throwing my passion in it, and then actually realized I was super talented in it. So all of that hard work for channeling my passion into something I would otherwise not do emerged me a scholarship from the Mayor of London, where top excelling female students got an opportunity to study at some of the best universities in the United States. So I winded up at Spelman College, which is one of the top 100 African American private institutions, and continued with my computer science there. But this opportunity came with a chance to work in the Mayor of Atlanta's office. And at the time, the Mayor of Atlanta was Shirley Franklin. She was the first woman and also first African-American mayor of the city of Atlanta. And she mentored me and just gave me the opportunity to throw myself out there. And at the time, the city of Atlanta was working on information technology security policies. And she single-handedly picked me out and asked that I deliver that project at federal state. And there was the chief information officer, very talented at the time, whose name was Abe Carney, and he was asked to oversee me. But basically, Shirley and Abe helped me to even further realize that I could push my passion, my love for logic and facts and creativity into something that was major and absolutely extraordinary just at the age of 21.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I know that there's some people who are getting, like a lot of people right now, are probably getting really, motivated about how you just get started, how to make it big. Because a few years later, go ahead and let us know what happened.
A few years later, I returned back to the United Kingdom. But one of the lessons that I took from that journey of hard work and the opportunity that came with studying at Spelman College was that Spelman College taught every woman who walked through those doors that she had a chance to change the world. And for the first time while I was in Spelman, I went like on my first march ever for something that I passionately cared about, which was a walk on breast cancer. But there was one too many walks at the end of the day aside breast cancer. We were really taught at Spelman to stand up for the things that we believed in and that we must change the world by giving back. So when I went back to England, I started my first organization, which was called Leading Global Inspiration. Now, Leading Global Inspiration is an initiative that I wanted to use to teach the underprivileged Black British students on mathematics, STEM, and technology. So I would literally go door to door and put flyers under people's houses and ask that they phone me. And that through this organization, which was a social enterprise, I would spend time in their houses and help them with anything mathematical, help them with anything scientific, and also English literature, which I love. But from not wanting to be an engineering student, I was now teaching students how to do this. And so just from that hard work, just throwing myself into being able to give back, and maybe partly you can call it throwing yourself out to almost take initiative. The thing that I learned, from my time in the US was that it's important that as individuals, we always take initiative. And I think that developed into many successes in my career. And we'll talk a little bit more about initiative. What did that journey of initiative look like for me?
Wow. I mean, I love how you just were passionate to give back, and you're passionate to be able to see young Black, is it UK students?
Yeah.
Be able to improve, because that's an area where a lot of them struggle.
And most of them were underprivileged, typically.
Underprivileged. That's truly inspiring. And then the next step came, you got into private sector, you started to work,
I did. So I was hired by a software house in London, which was the top software house in London at the time, and they made trading platforms for the top tier blue chip investment banks in the world. So JP Morgan Chase, Credit Suisse, BNP Paribas. I'm not sure if there's any one of those at that time whose systems I didn't set up. And I was the first Black person to be hired in that firm, but also the first woman to be hired in that firm. And they really recognized the work that I had done in Atlanta, because I got a fantastic mentor who helped to push me and got me producing something really big. And then as a result of that, I moved on to a Fortune 500 firm, NCR Corporation, which is the largest provider of the world's IT and retail banking solutions. And while I was there, I really continued on that journey of initiative. And I really wanted to see how else I could give back and direct in creating products that would help in the banking sector. And so I spoke to some of my superiors and supervisors to ask how I could do this. And one of the things they said to me was, I think, you must go to business school and probably if you then go to business school, you can, merge and marry your engineering with also some business acumen. But one of the key things that I had also learned through a lot of reading, and I had read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers. Outliers talks about not only hard work, doing your 10,000 hours, which are the things that really differentiated people like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, your early pioneers in technology, but it also talked about being amongst the best. And I told myself that I was going to have to try and get myself into an Ivy League school or red brick school, one of the top 10 in the world for my MBA. And believe it or not, for you to get into one of these schools, you have to write an exam called a GMAT. And again, I have to work super hard at things engineering and mathematical. I threw myself in and I had to write my GMAT 3 times. I didn't give up on it until I got the right GMAT score. And it was super painful, but I was just going to take absolutely no less because of these lessons that I had learned. And so I winded up at Imperial College London, which is one of the best for science and technology in the world. And got in there to do my MBA. And then I decided to take initiative while I was at my corporate firm. I saw that the world was really transitioning towards mobile from internet platforms. And I wasn't sure that my firm that I was working for at the time was ready for this. So I spoke to the VP at the time who was running Western Europe, and I said, I don't think the organization is ready for digitization. What are we going to do about this? And I think I should embark on a project that focuses the company's strategy globally on digitization. And so they allowed me and gave me the free will right from HQ in Atlanta to run that strategy across 52 countries and define possibly what the firm could look like for its future. And bear in mind, this was a company which was almost 125 years old at the time. So initiative is from hard work. Initiative, even if it's when you're giving back or when you're present somewhere, I think is something that I've learned could define one's journey.
So you guys, that is it for today. We look forward to catching up with you guys next time. As we said in the beginning, like, share, put your comments below. What is it that you loved about Natalie's story that has really inspired you? And be sure to join us on the next Africa X chat. Okay?
Bye.
So join us next week for the second part of Nat's story. You're going to love this. She tells us her leadership journey, exactly the steps that she took to get her into the positions of influence that she is right now, and how you can start to do the same. Look forward to chatting then.